Idaho Matters is brought to you in part by St. Luke's Pharmacy, now offering free home delivery. For daily medications or one time prescriptions, home delivery is easy to set up. It's convenient and safe. St. Luke's Pharmacy, now delivering to your doorstep. Information on how to get started at stlukesonline.org.
Family, work, school, you've got a lot going on. I'm Aisha Roscoe from NPR. We know you're busy, so we've made staying informed easy. The Boise State Public Radio mobile app is a hassle-free way to keep up with the latest news and stories. Whether you're cooking dinner, folding laundry, or just tackling your daily to-do list, staying in the know has never been so simple. Download the free Boise State Public Radio app today, so even when you're busy, you'll never miss a beat. And join me for Weekend Edition every Sunday morning from 6 to 10 on Boise State Public Radio News.
More Idaho Matters now from the studios of Boise State Public Radio News. I'm Gemma Gaudette. We spend so much time thinking about how to prepare for retirement, saving money, planning for healthcare, maybe even dreaming about where we'll live or where we'll travel. But there's one thing most of us don't really plan for: who we'll spend that time with. Loneliness, especially later in life, is more common than many people realize, and it can have real consequences for our health. So, what would it look like to plan not just for financial security, but for connection? Marcus Riley is one of the authors of the new book, Your Aging Advantage: The 7 New Stages of Aging. And he's joining us now to talk about how we might want to rethink what it really means to age well. Marcus, welcome to the show.
Hi, Gemma. Great to be with you.
It's really nice to have you with us. So, Marcus, to start off, can you frame loneliness for us, not just as an emotional experience, but as a health risk? I mean, why do you think it's been largely overlooked in traditional retirement planning?
Great question, Gemma. And as you alluded to, it's more than just a thought. It's about disconnection, and that disconnection leads to loss of engagement, a reduced sense of purpose, a reduced sense of self-worth, and that has a really detrimental impact on our health and well-being. And it is starting to be more recognised that the risk and the threat of that isolation and loneliness. And as an example, the government in the United Kingdom a couple of years ago created for the first time a minister for loneliness in their government, because some of the research is starting to flow through where people being isolated, being lonely, it does really affect their health and well-being. It's that reality of people becoming more and more withdrawn from society, from their community, not having the relationships that are so healthy for us at any age, particularly as we do get older. So it's an absolute threat to our well-being as we progress through our aging journey.
In your book, you introduced this idea of social retirement. What does that mean in practical terms for someone maybe in their 50s and 60s who is trying to plan ahead?
Yeah, so this notion of retirement, which when that was created, really our lifespan or our expected lifespan was much less than it is now. And with our increased longevity, if people were to still retire at that arbitrary age of 60 or 65, there's decades left of our life. And if we do step away from our working life in an unplanned way, then all of a sudden we have this big disconnection in terms of the community that we may have been a part of, that identity that may have been really supported through whatever our career was and our working life. So we need to really contemplate what that might mean. And what we don't want to see occur is that social retirement, which is becoming disengaged, becoming disconnected. So it's really important for us to be thinking and planning and making sure that we understand what are the relationships that are important to us and what is our connection to community. And it's important to point out too that it's not about having 1,000 friends or what have you. It's about the quality of those relationships. So for some people, it's 1 or 2 relationships, and that is enough to ensure they aren't retired socially, and they get that fulfillment through those small number of really quality relationships. But for other people, it is about a connection with a broader group and doing different things with different areas of their community. So it's really about understanding what is important to you, given who you are as a person. And as we do go through particular transitions, for example, stepping away from work, how do we fuel those social connections? How are we ensuring that we're not retiring socially and removing ourselves from our place in community and society more broadly?
So let's talk a little bit more about this quality over quantity idea when it comes to relationships. As you mentioned, you need one or two, maybe three, like really strong
Yeah.
relationships. So how can people realistically assess whether they have those deeper supportive connections in their lives?
Yeah, it's a challenging question for all of us, I think. And what I would point to there, Gemma, is really investing time in reflecting and thinking about ourselves, which I don't think we all do that commonly, or certainly not enough. But there's a couple of aspects to that reflection. One is looking back and looking at the person we have been and that we are, and what's been influential and important in our lives in terms of those relationships. Who are the people who we really are enriched by and supported by and value? And then on the back of that review, then looking forward in terms of if we can chart or imagine our preferred lifestyle into our stages of aging that lie ahead, who are the people we want around us? What are the relationships that are really going to fuel me in terms of my sense of self-worth, my sense of connection, my sense of purpose? And for some, that might be just within our family, and the role I play in my family may well be enough. Again, for others, it might be a wider circle of friends or particular community roles that you play. But it does require that investment in thinking about ourselves and really enhancing our knowledge of self. I think if we can attain that knowledge and understanding of who we are and what's important to us, then the clarity around those relationships that are best for us and that we value and treasure the most becomes a lot clearer.
Have you seen a difference when it comes to, men thinking about retiring and loneliness versus women and retiring and loneliness and aging? And I ask this question because, I have very close girlfriends, two girlfriends in particular, where we've already decided, like, look, if we become, if we live longer than our husbands, we're all living together. We're going to be, like the Golden Girls, right? And my husband is always like, I don't have any friends. He does, but I do think that we are socialized from a young age to have strong friendships and to maintain those friendships. I do not see, at least men of my generation, they haven't been socialized in that regard. So I'm wondering if we're seeing a difference in this when men and women retire and age.
Yeah, again, Gemma, that's a great question, and I think there's a generational aspect to that issue. And I really hate being stereotypical, but for the purpose of the question, I think looking at the generation which has probably come before us, where the men typically had their careers and then they'd stopped working and really lost that sense of identity and that social connection I was referring to earlier, and haven't been good at either fostering ongoing relationships or making new ones. So they were probably at greater threat of that isolation that we're talking about. And the other aspect of that was the women living longer than males. So again, often you would see if there was a marriage that the husband would predecease the wife, and the wife would then live longer and then be at her own risk of that isolation because perhaps there wasn't the social connections there or what have you. But then as we step back to the generations that are moving into older age now and later stages, from midlife onwards, I think your point is accurate around the women having, I guess, healthier social connections, social relationships. And but I think we are seeing, and I certainly point to my own generation of male peers, that I think starting to be better at that openness, about that connectedness, and understanding that we do need those relationships and we need quality relationships, I think, as we are moving through our midlife and beyond. But it's, the better identification of who are the people that actually are really good for me and vice versa, and investing my time there, as opposed to perhaps when we were younger, where it was, you need to be part of the crowd, and you're searching for that wider social connection. So I think it's evolving. But of course, we are being, I'm being a bit generalist here in terms of those descriptions. So there's personal and individual circumstances across all our social cohorts, and I think, coming back to your first question around loneliness, that's what we need to better understand, that not everyone's the same, and not everybody needs the same thing. So whilst we might see some evolution in terms of what I was just talking about, there are still going to be, and definitely are, people who are socially disconnected and isolated. And I think the other compounding issue there, Gemma, is as people get older, and if they do need, for example, to access care or support as they get older, obviously the huge preference is to do that in your own home, which is great. But the risk that comes along with that is someone getting propped up in their own home, but being isolated, and maybe family don't live close. There might be in a neighbourhood where there isn't that natural or incidental sort of connection and relationship. So there's different aspects there we really need to be acutely aware of, and looking at how we best facilitate people being, socially connected, being able to nurture both existing and new relationships.
You write in the book about this idea of age integration. Can you tell us what that looks like day to day, and why does it matter so much for how we experience aging?
Absolutely, Gemma. I believe it's a really important way of thinking and approaching our social connections and social structures, because there's so much to be gained by intergenerational engagements, and also that awareness and embracing in terms of our different age ranges or generational cohorts. And essentially, it's really breaking down the structural barriers based on age that we do see pretty commonly applied across different areas of our communities and societies, and fostering or promoting that intergenerational interaction and connection. And there's some really clear and good examples of where that can occur. And obviously one is the workplace, where there's workplaces today where we've got 6 generations, working side by side, 17-year-olds all the way through to 85-year-olds. And often that's seen as a challenge or a barrier to people connecting, but it's actually a really healthy thing, both for people individually, but also an organization or a team environment like that, where you've got people from those different generations who will bring their own set of expertise, their own set of perspectives, and be able to share and collaborate around those. It's really powerful in terms of that harnessing of what different generations offer when it's done properly. Education and learning is another good example, where we've seen universities and community colleges, etc., with programs that really promote and are designed for engagement of learners at all different ages. And again, you really see the value and the benefit from people sharing different perspectives, challenging each other, respecting each other's views, and learning from each other. We've also seen it in different countries in the care environment, where you might have assisted living facilities or nursing homes that are co-located with either universities or even with childcare centres, and having, again, that cross-generation interaction. And I think it's really important for 2 things in regards to those sort of initiatives. One, that it's done with substance, so it can't be tokenistic in terms of, okay, a group of kids is going to come and visit the older people, so to speak, once, and then we're doing intergenerational. It needs to be done with substance so that relationships can form organically. And that's really the second point, that it's, yes, you want structure to it, but you want those relationships to form naturally. And as we alluded to earlier in the conversation, that different people will connect with different people, right? So we can't say, well, this child over here or this teenager over here, you go and be friends with the older person who is next to you. You need to create the environment for that to happen naturally, and that's when you get relationships that are real and are of value. But I think coming back to the first point, it's really having that more open mindset to understanding the value of facilitating those multi-generational environments, again, whether it's the workplace, whether it's in an educational setting, whether it's in our communities. And I think, from a family perspective, often, families are separated by geography and distance. So what many of us may have grew up with in terms of grandchildren having a lot of time with grandparents and so forth, if we have an absence of that within our family, it's really important for each end of the age spectrum to foster that in some other way, whether it's with people in our neighbourhood, again, whether it's in a different community setting or what have you. There's great value to be had by ensuring we've got that age integration.
So for people who are still in their working years, what is one thing that you believe maybe they should start doing now to invest in their social well-being later on in life?
Planning is absolutely vital, Gemma, in the sense of casting forward, and these plans don't need to be set in stone, but we want them to inform our thinking and our choices, because to me, the more we plan, the greater control we have over our different phases of life. And we know as we get to that phase that, we're talking about, post-work or what have you, that there's going to be transitions, there's going to be change. And we can either let that happen to us or we can shape it and design it for ourselves. And so people in the category you were talking about, it's really the value of planning and thinking about, again, where I want to be, what do I want to be doing, and who are the people I want to be connected with, and the types of activities and social connections that I want to be having for myself, and how do I help facilitate that. And I think once we do that for ourselves, then we can be communicating with other people about that and either getting their support or their ideas or their input into the sorts of things I want to be putting in place for myself. So I would, absolutely recommend that planning. It's never too early to plan. I think that's the other thing too, that sometimes retirement or that sort of transitional phase we think is a long way away, and then all of a sudden it arrives pretty quickly. And again, we have less control when we haven't planned. So it's never too early to be contemplating and putting some of those plans in place with the knowledge that we can always come back and adapt and change. And that's one of the key things we talk about in the book, is that we do evolve and adapt our plans because our priorities might change, our preferences might change. But I think it's really important that those plans are influenced by our passions, so that we then maximize the choices to best suit ourselves.
I have about 1 minute left with you. What is one idea you would like folks to take away from the book when it comes to aging well?
I think recognizing the fluidity of aging, Gemma, that we have grown up with this almost ageist, stereotypical view that aging is just a one-way path of decline, where that's not the case at all. There are interventions we can make to shape our longer life the way we want to. There are things we can do to improve our physical well-being, our psychological well-being, and as we've spoken about today, our social well-being as well. So recognize that it is a fluid process, our aging journey, and it's one that we can really take control of, being positive, planning, and fostering our sense of purpose.
I want to thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today. It really has been such an interesting conversation. We've been speaking with Marcus Riley. He is one of the authors of the new book, Your Aging Advantage: The 7 New Stages of Aging. And thanks so much for listening to Idaho Matters from Boise State Public Radio. Do you have thoughts about today's episode? Make sure you email us at idahomatters@boisestate.edu or reach out on our socials. And if this episode meant something to you, text it to a friend.
So you can't see this, but hopefully you can hear it. Behind every Boise State Public Radio podcast is a team working hard to bring you stories that matter. So if you value podcasts like this one, please support them. Hit donate at boisestatepublicradio.org. Thanks.